A couple of days ago, I was on Twitter in this college football Twitter space, right? And they were going around telling everybody to say who their biggest sleeper team was for this season. So they get to me, and I tell them that my biggest sleeper team for the 2022 college football season is South Carolina. And everybody absolutely laughs at me. And then a couple of seconds later, when the laughter started to die down, they asked me, okay, JT, how many games do you think South Carolina is going to win this season? I told them 8, and they started to laugh at me again. And everybody's thinking I'm trying to be a troll or I'm trying to be funny. And the whole time, I'm looking back behind my phone screen just like this with a straight face because I'm dead behind serious. And people started to come at me trying to say, JT, you got to be a South Carolina fan. There's no way that you can possibly believe that South Carolina is going to win 8 games with how tough their schedule is. And I told them, for one, I'm not a South Carolina fan. I am a diehard Miami Hurricanes fan. You can find plenty of content on YouTube of me repping my Miami Hurricanes. Same thing for my Twitter profile. But if I got to be a temporary fan this year and root for South Carolina because I have them winning 8 games this year, if I got to be a fan of them also behind my Miami Hurricanes, then I guess I'm a temporary fan for this season of South Carolina football. Then another thing is that I don't care how tough South Carolina's schedule is this season. Okay, at the end of the day, when I look at South Carolina, I see a roster that has enough talent of being able to win at least 8 games or more. And their defense is already pretty solid. And their secondary is going to be really good. But this offense could shock a lot of people, not only in the SEC, but in college football as a whole. Because think about it. The 2 biggest weaknesses that South Carolina had on offense last season was the quarterback position and the offensive line. Now, when it comes to the offensive line, we really don't know. All we can do is project. We can project that the offensive line should be better this season, and it definitely will be. I'm willing to put money down on this because I don't think their offensive line can get any worse than what we saw last season. And I think with the offensive line going into this year, I think that you don't really need them to be great. All you really are hoping for if you're a South Carolina fan is to just be better than what you were last year. So if you're a South Carolina fan, you're just hoping that you have an average offensive line. And I think that South Carolina is going to be able to get that out of this unit. However, what if they're hitting their stride? How good could this offensive line be? What is the ceiling for this offensive line? I think at best, this could be a above average offensive line. So when you look at South Carolina, you give them an above average offensive line with Spencer Rattler at quarterback, this offense is going to cook. Because this is another thing that people overlook. South Carolina's wide receiver position is absolutely stacked. Josh Vann was a monster last season. 43 receptions for 679 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. If he would have declared for the draft last year, I felt like he would have been a 3rd or 4th round pick, but he decided to return. You got the Carry-On Joyner, who had 24 receptions, 221 receiving yards, and a touchdown. Both of these wide receivers are super talented, but they were held back by lackluster quarterback play. And no matter how you feel about Spencer Rattler, there's no way in hell that you can tell anybody with a straight face that Spencer Rattler isn't the best quarterback that they have had in a while. At least better than what they had trying out there last season. And the things with Spencer Rattler that people keep harping about, such as his pocket awareness and his decision making, these are all things that can be fixed with coaching. You see, it's crazy, right? People talk about how you got to have all these 5 or 4 stars to be able to compete for championships, right? But people act like you get these 4 and 5 stars on your team and they just coach themselves. No, somebody has to help these guys develop. Who's in charge of that? The coaching. And it's funny because everybody who said, oh, I like Shane Beamer, JT, I just don't know if it's going to work this year. You said that last year. And look what South Carolina did. They over-exceeded expectations. And you're saying the same thing this year. Oh, I love Shane Beamer, but I just can't see them winning 8 games. If you love Shane Beamer, that means you trust Shane Beamer. That also means that you trust not only him, but his coaching staff. So if you love Shane Beamer and you trust Shane Beamer so much, you should have enough confidence in his coaching staff to be able to help improve this offensive line and help further develop Spencer Rattler. So you look at the fact that they're stacked at wide receiver. You got Josh Vann, the carrying joiner there, but you also have Antoine Wells Jr., right, who was one of the best wide receivers in the FCS when he was playing for James Madison University. You want to know something crazy? Antoine Wells Jr. ranks third time in JMU football history in receiving touchdowns. He also ranks ninth in yards and career receptions there. The dude is an absolute baller. He's also going to have a factor in the passing game when it comes to the wide receiver room. You also have Jaheim Bell, Austin Stogner. This is one of the best tight end groups in the SEC, definitely behind Georgia. Like, Jaheim Bell is one of the best tight ends in college football. And then you have Austin Stogner, who also follows Spencer Rattler from Oklahoma to South Carolina. Like, this offense has a ton of weapons in the pass game. Now, running back, you're set there. You got Marshawn Lloyd, who was the 5th-ranked running back coming out of that 2020 class. However, he suffered an ACL injury that caused him to miss all of that 2020 season. And last year, 2021, he came back, but he wasn't really that big of a factor in the offense because he still is trying to work himself back to 110%. But this year, he should be getting the majority of the carries. You also have Juju McDowell, who is pretty much the change of pace back. He can do it all. He also can return punts and kicks as well. Then you have 5th-year transfer from Wake Forest and Christian Bill Smith, who led the Demon Deacons in rushing yards for the last 2 seasons. So this is a offense that has a lot of talent at every single position. Like, if one of their key contributors at wide receiver goes down, they have somebody coming off the bench who can step in and have a high-level production. Same thing with the running back and tight end position. The biggest concern is the offensive line, but I think that the offensive line should be solid this year. And if this offensive line can perform at a average to above average level, South Carolina is going to shock a lot of people this year. Because people act like they got holes all over the roster. Like, this offense is already made. All they just need is better quarterback play than what they had last season and in a solid offensive line. And they are going to have a lot of guys who are going to absolutely blow up. And I think for Spencer Rattler, all he really needed was a change of scenery. He's now around coaches that are going to put a lot of emphasis on trying to develop him, on trying to prepare him. I think for Lincoln Riley, you know, he never really asked himself, okay, what can I do to get the most out of Spencer Rattler? What do I have to change? Because you got to remember, Lincoln Riley is considered to be the quarterback guru of college football. He had Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield. Both of those guys got drafted in the first round. They're both playing in the NFL, all thanks to his tutelage. So when you have so much success at quarterback, you know, sometimes when things aren't working out, you don't start to question yourself. You start to look at the player. And Caleb Williams did come in and perform at a pretty high level. But at the same time, you know, there were a lot of things that I feel Lincoln Riley could have done a lot better to help Spencer Rattler improve. Because at the end of the day, Lincoln Riley can get all the credit for helping Baker, Kyler Murray, and maybe Caleb Williams. But at the same time, he also deserves blame when somebody doesn't work out. And not enough people put the blame on him for Spencer Rattler not really working out. So you look at Spencer Rattler, man. I just think as long as this old line can hold up, South Carolina's offense is going to be one of the biggest surprises in the SEC this year. I mean, they have talent. It's just all about if the offensive line is going to give Spencer Rattler time to throw the football. And even then, Spencer Rattler was at his best when he was under pressure. He is one of the best throwers of the football when he's throwing against a blitz or when he's throwing with multiple guys in his face. The problem with Spencer Rattler was he made mistakes when everything was clean. When he was throwing out of a clean pocket, he would roll out of the pocket as if there was a million guys in his face. His decision-making will also go down when he was throwing out of a clean pocket. So Spencer Rattler was kind of at his best when it was a bunch of chaos in front of him. So for Spencer Rattler, this is a quarterback that has all of the physical tools to play at a really high level. Really, it just comes down to the coaching staff. But I think that South Carolina's offense is going to be the biggest surprise in the SEC this year. But you guys let me know what you guys think about South Carolina's offense down in the comment section down below.